Deletions. All right.
Yeah, move item G1 to the end of, to item G3. Because item G1 and the successor agency item are related, I'd like to take them at the same time.
Very good. Moving on to presentations. Police Department. Chief. There you go.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. It's an exciting time at the police department and for community members. We want you to meet the three newest members of the police department. If they'll come forward right now, all three of you, come on down, and you can just stand right in front here. And we'll do just a brief introduction for you and for the community. And of course, we'll start with the most important. The most important would be Emily Soar, because why? Because she's she's our newest dispatcher, and we're really sunk without our dispatchers to handle the calls from the community, enter that information in the computers, and send it out to the officers and keep everything coordinated. So dispatchers are key to the operation. So we're really happy to have Emily. She has been a dispatcher with us since just November 4th. She hails from Tracy, California. Interesting background, her former career area, she was a behavioral technician for autistic children, ages 2 to 6 years old. And so quite a, well, maybe not so much of a career change. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. Apologize for that. Some of her hobbies and interests are traveling, cooking, reading and watching history. Her family, her mother and father and brother is in the Marine Corps. He's a gunnery sergeant. And we asked any special accomplishments for her. And she was the first place winner for the Veterans of Foreign War Speech Competition, as well as first place for the Tracy Rotary, and gained much experience from working in the field of communication. So we're very happy to have Emily on board. Welcome, Emily. Our next introduction is Christine Hill, but I've been told that she likes to go by Chrissy. So Officer Hill is actually working tonight, and this isn't nerve-wracking enough for her to be here. Her training officer is standing in the back, watching every move and evaluating her. This will go on her daily report. It's going to be done at the end of the shift. Chrissy has just graduated from the academy, and that was not Monday, but the Monday before. She graduated from the academy and just hit the ground running right into patrol training. So we're really happy to have her. She's a resident of Orangevale. She is attending college and going to finish her degree. Her former area was customer service, so this is really appropriate that she's still in the customer service business now. Her hobbies and interests are, well, she's obviously athletic because she likes playing soccer, basketball, hiking, anything outdoors, but also riding. Some significant accomplishments for her, besides graduating from the academy and getting her, quote, dream job as a police officer. We're happy to hear that. But a special recognition for those who don't know about how the academy works, she was chosen as one of the squad leaders for the academy, which is an honor that not everybody earns. So she was one of the squad leaders for the academy. So welcome aboard, Chrissy. Glad to have you. Okay, last, certainly not least, Mr. Alex Ochoa. And actually, Alex start date, he actually starts Thursday. So we wanted to include him in here. He'll be starting with us on Thursday, December 3rd, and he'll go into his patrol training. He's a resident of Ocampo. He's pursuing his BA degree. And his former career area, we all owe a debt of gratitude. He was in the United States Army Military Police before coming to us. His interests are hiking, playing sports, and target shooting. He's engaged to Shay, who I don't believe any family members are here tonight, but and any significant accomplishments, he chose something from his military career. He was deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. So he's been overseas defending our freedoms here. So Alex, thank you very much. Welcome aboard. Time to run. Just for information, there will be an actual swearing-in ceremony where they invite their family, their friends, and it'll be later this month at the police department. So,
Outstanding.
Congratulations, all of you.
guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to our next presentation, the purpose of the comprehensive annual financial report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and committee members. So for this one, Greg Lucido, Deputy Finance Director, is going to give that presentation. So, Greg?
Thank you, Ned. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. It is my privilege this evening to present to you the purpose of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or a CAFR. Perhaps. All right. So the purpose of a CAFR primarily is to provide transparency, reports financial position of the entire city and its component units, as well as reporting the financial position of each of the city's funds, and provides detailed disclosures of key financial statement elements. And also, very importantly, it is to comply with state law for financial reporting. Now, as a local government agency, we are required to issue, at a minimum, a set of general purpose financial statements which are prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles as promulgated by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or the GASB. Now, a CAFR exceeds this minimum requirement. In our presentation tonight, I'll show you the differences between the CAFR and the general purpose financial statements. All right. The general purpose financial statement can have three key components. The first of which is the management's discussion and analysis, otherwise known as the MD&A, and this is where management has the opportunity to provide an analysis, a financial analysis on the performance for the year. It shows what increased, what decreased. It's a very quantitative, straightforward analysis. The next component is the basic financial statements, which has in itself three elements. The first of which is the government-wide financial statements, which combine all the city's activities into two columns, your governmental activities and your business type activities, which basically is just a big snapshot of where the city's finances rest. The next component are the fund financial statements, and this is really more of the meat of what's happening with the city at a fund level. So all the different revenue sources, whether governmental in nature, source, or business type, they're provided in their own funds, and this, the fund financial statements is where that information resides. Thirdly, it has the notes of the financial statements, which are a very important element. It provides the detailed disclosures supporting the city's finances, includes things such as accounting policies, cash and investment details, capital assets, long-term debt, pensions, etc. All of that content is promulgated by GASB and is prepared in accordance with GAAP. Lastly, it also has required supplementary information. And the required supplementary information primarily consists of your budget to actual schedules for your major funds, as well as other schedules that are required by GAAP, such as pension information, open information, things of that nature. Now, as compared to a CAFR, the CAFR has all those elements I just described, as you can see highlighted in the blue there, but also has a few additional elements, including an introductory section, which has your report cover, your title page, table of contents, things that make the report look nice, but also has a transmittal letter. Now, the transmittal letter is very important. It's very similar to an MD&A, where it gives an opportunity for management to discuss the important highlights of the city's accomplishments, but is more qualitative in nature. So these are the key projects we're doing, these are goals, these are objectives, these are things that we're accomplishing. So it's a very good communication to the public. In the financial statements, the financial section, which includes the general purpose financial statements, it also has the auditor's report. And then lastly, in a CAFR, which is unique to a CAFR, we have the statistical section. Now, the statistical section has historical summary of various economic information, has tables on historical financial trends, revenue capacity, demographics, things of that nature. It's very useful information and is not required by GAAP, but is included in a CAFR only. Now that you know a little bit about the CAFR, it's very important to say, well, who is going to use this very important document? First of all, and most importantly, is the community members of the city of Galt, businesses, citizens alike. You see where all the resources are coming in and where they're going. State and federal agencies, granting agencies, to ensure that we're complying with our reporting requirements. Also, credit rating agencies, any publicly issued financing tools. The credit agencies will be looking at our CAFR to determine our credit ratings, as well as financial statements, financial institutions, and public and private investors alike. So that actually concludes my brief presentation. So I'd like to open it up for any questions you might have.
Questions from council?
No, very good.
Thank you very much, Greg. Awesome job.
Very good.
Thank you.
Moving on, public comment.
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the council on non-agenda items. Speakers may address council on any agenda item during the consideration of the item. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council and limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the clerk.
And we have Gail Weber.
Pull
the mic down.
mic down.
My name is Gail Weber. I'm a member of the community for 21 years. I also worked at the Department of SPCA for 7 years. And I'm talking about the
Gail, wait a minute, wait. That was a mistake, but we can't hear you.
Okay.
I can't talk.
Turn your mic on also, please. Little red gray button there. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. While the Sacramento County Animal Facility looks good on paper, I really think it's not the practical solution to pet overpopulation, especially with a feral cat population. While I worked at the Sacramento SPCA, we were involved with a vet named Dr. Hatton at the Greenhaven Veterinarian Clinic, and we were able to significantly reduce feral cat populations in 2 of the largest known colonies in the Sacramento area, which was Miller Park and Parker Art Museum.
Oh my gosh. Let's go.
We found out that the traditional method of trap neuter release was not working. Dr. Hatton was working on a method which is called trap vasectomy hysterectomy release. And what we did is identifying the cat populations that were the largest. We had worked with a cat lady named Mrs. Audegard Shepherd and her husband. They fed all the feral cats in the downtown Sacramento area. So with her input and with Dr. Hatton's input, we started trapping and neutering the cats in those colonies. We vasectomized the males and we neutered and spayed the females. What we saw was a drastic reduction in the cat population. And the reason that trap, vasectomy, hysterectomy, neuter release works is that cats are spontaneous ovulators. In other words, they do not ovulate until they are penetrated by a male cat. If you castrate a male cat, it takes away all his sex drive. He no longer defends his territory, he no longer drives off all the other males, and another intact male cat will just take over that territory. If you vasectomize a cat, he is the one that continues to defend that territory, continues to breed with all the female cats, and there's no more litters born. The cats enter, the female cats when when they breed with a vasectomized male, they enter a pseudo-pregnancy for about 45 days. They don't breed during that time. So the breeding season for cats is in the summer months, so it's about a 3 or 4 time breeding cycle. So if you get the females breeding with vasectomized males, they no longer have litters. And then the cold season comes and that kind of starts all over again. We found that by doing this, I could drastically reduce the cat population, the feral cat population. We did this program for a while until we basically ran out of funding. Dr. Hatton really couldn't afford to do this for free on his own, and we didn't have the funding to continue with it. When I worked at Sacramento SPCA, I helped facilitate the euthanasia of thousands of animals. Typically, we do almost 100 a day in the summertime because it didn't take many litters of 4 to 6 to 8 kittens and 6 to 8, 10 puppies coming in that we just couldn't contain them all. So we had to merchandise the animals, and basically that is the litters came in, they were thinned immediately because we couldn't have all black and white kittens and we couldn't have all shepherd cross puppies in those things. So also the animals that came in, the parents weren't necessarily vaccinated, so that the puppies and kittens usually did not survive a kennel situation. It was too stressful and they became sick very quickly. Another thing that I have an issue with the facility, the way it's stated in the paper, is giving away free animals and free spay and neuters and free food and free vaccinations places no value on the animals. If you really can't afford to feed an animal, to take it to the vet, if it gets hit by a car, you really shouldn't have a pet in the first place. And I don't think shelters are a place where pet overpopulation is really taken care of. It's through pet responsibility as far as neutering your animal, committing to it for life, and education. I just don't think that giving away animals for free is going to actually be the best way to do this. All I have.
Thank you very much.
I submitted a thing for you to read. Basically, it's a little bit more comprehensive, and also an article written by Dr. Ernie Ward about TVHRs.
Thank you. Thank you. Don Parsons.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Don Parsons. I live at 3333 Central Boulevard in Stockton. And I'm here as the district chairman for the Gold Country District representing Stockton, Lodi, Galt, and Calaveras County. I wanted to acknowledge the efforts of the scouts of your community this past, before Thanksgiving, the weekend of the 21st. Scouts from throughout Galt went door to door collecting food for the needy and collected over 1,200 pounds, which was delivered to South County Services, and combined with the other activities in the district, the Boy Scouts in our area collected over 18,000 pounds of food. I don't know how many meals that is, but it seems like it's a whole heck of a lot. So we wanted to thank them. We have a couple of our leaders, Joe Guerrero and Leroy Gum, representing 2 of our scout troops. And the young men who are here were part of the, we call it Scouting for Food. And we're very proud of their efforts. In our area, just so that you know, we've had 37 Eagle Scouts this year. We have 35 Boy Scout troops, so that's 1 Eagle Scout for about an average of 1 Eagle Scout for every Boy Scout troop. That if you've ever been involved in scouting or know anything about scouting, only about 3% of the boys that enter scouting ever achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. So we're proud of that because it says that our kids are learning. You know, it's kind of funny, and one of the favorite things that I like to tell people, you know, folks don't necessarily know about Boy Scouts, but there is a Scout Oath and a Scout Law. And the Scout Law, you may have heard of it, trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And an interesting study was done many, many years ago. They quizzed boys who had been Scouts 40 years after their scouting involvement. So these are folks that are between 50 and 60 years old. And 95% of the individuals that were surveyed could recite, just as I just did, that Scout Oath and Law perfectly. And the reason I bring that up is because, first, I think the world would be a whole lot better if everybody ascribed to the values that are part of the Scout Law. And second, because I believe that Scouting imprints those values on young men's hearts, and they carry it with them for the rest of their lives. So I think we do important work, and not only helping those that are maybe less fortunate, but also preparing young men to be leaders, young men and young women, because we have ladies in scouting as well, to be good citizens. I thank you for your time, and I have a few little things to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do, and I'll give those to the clerk. And thank you very much for the time. I'd also like to take one brief second, because I almost screwed up, and introduce Adan Barajas, who is our new district executive representing the area, and you'll see, I hope, a lot of him. And so thank you again for your time.
Just a minute, Don. I get to wear both hats right now as a council member and as the recipient of your food drive, which you have done for many, many, many years for us. And you do it the week before Thanksgiving, which is a really important time of the year. I want to thank you all very much. A lot of needy families are hurting with the holiday season and with the cold weather. And we wouldn't be able to supply without your help. And I'm proud to say that not only do we take it for ourselves, but we work with these churches in town. And so thanks to the Scouts, we have a mission to never let anyone go hungry during this holiday season, and we seriously couldn't do it without your help. So we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And Adan Barajas, would you like to come speak, please?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for having us today. My name is Adan Barajas, and I'm the district executive for the Galt Country District. Galt Country District is part of the Greater Yosemite Council of Boy Scouts of America. Our headquarters is in Modesto, but we also have an office in Stockton, and that's where I work at. I just wanted to let the community know that we're always proud of our scouts. You know, Galt's in a unique place, kind of the border between the Greater Yosemite Council and the Sequoia and the Golden Empire Council. But we're all proud of all scouts. You know, like Mary Lou mentioned, you know, they do a great job. You know, they put a lot of effort. But sometimes the folks that hardly ever get recognized are the leaders. And personally, I want to thank Joe Guerrero and Leroy. If you ask them, they spend a lot of weekends with the boys. Sometimes that's why people don't know about Scouts, because they're out in the woods or under a basement having meetings. But like Mr. Don Parsons mentioned, you know, through the values of the Scout Oath and Law, you know, they exercise the citizenship training, physical fitness, and character development. And because the police chief is in front of me, you know, I'm sure that he'd like to hire some of these boys if they like a career in law enforcement, because they will be trustworthy and honest. So thank you for having us tonight, and have a good night. Thank you.
Keep
Thank
up
you,
the
sir.
good work. Thank you.
Right, moving on to consent calendar. Do you have a motion to approve?
Do you want Donna to read them first, or? You want to read them first, or no? Okay. Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Powers, second by Vice Mayor Payne. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
Aye. 5-0 vote. Moving on to the city manager's office. Redevelopment dissolution compliance deadline. Actually, we're moving that one, correct?
Yes, sir, if we could just go right to the finance department first.
Okay, Finance Department.
bear with me so we can get the PowerPoint going here.
I think there's a ghost in the machine in this place.
Yeah. There we go.
They have to warm up.
Can start, we'll catch up with you.
Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members. Okay, so we'll just vote up there. So we did pass out a presentation for your use, and you can follow along, and there are some extra copies on the back table, so if any audience members want to follow along as well, then they're available for your use. So this evening, staff is recommending that council accept the City of Galt annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2015. We are also recommending that council accept the memorandum on internal control and required communications for the same fiscal year end, and also the independent accountant's report on compliance with Proposition 111 for the 2014-15 fiscal year on the appropriations limit. So the first report that we want to talk about this evening is the comprehensive annual financial report, and that's what Greg mentioned earlier, also known as the CAFR. And this is this big report. As presented by Greg this evening, we present the annual financial report as it's a public record. It's our way of presenting financial information to the community. It does include all of the funds and account groups. And the three important parts of the CAFR are the introductory section, the financial section, and the statistical section. The city's financial statements have been audited by Mays & Associates, and they are a firm of licensed certified public accountants, and we do have one of the partners with us this evening, Catherine Ewan, so we will ask her to come up at the end of the presentations in case council does have any questions. They actually review it in the hopes of providing assurance to the community and to users of the CAFR that they can, with reasonable assurance, rely on the financial statements and they are free from material misstatement. So I am proud to present that the auditors did present an unqualified opinion. And I would like to go over the CAFR with you. We did present this at the September 15th meeting. It was a pre-audit, but we do have audited financials in front of us this evening, so I do want to go over those with you briefly. The general fund revenues, at the time of the pre-audit, we said we're under by about $510,000. If you look at the CAFR, it actually shows just about $200,000. There are some timing issues, but I do want to go through some of these items with you in more detail. So what you see in front of you on the very first, on the far left, you'll see those are taxes, and you can see an increase from actual to budget, primarily in property taxes and sales tax. Some of the others are pretty close to budget, but you will see intergovernmental revenues were actually lower than budget, primarily because there were some grants that were not received as previously reported, CDBG grants. We didn't have expenditures incurred, so we couldn't ask for a reimbursement of amounts. And then finally, under miscellaneous, that was another one that was low in comparison to, refunds and reimbursements was low in comparison to budget, and that was primarily a reimbursement from the casino project. We had anticipated some reimbursements for services rendered, and that reimbursement has not been received. And then the other category was miscellaneous, and that was amount for the police debt service. That was an internal, and we basically told council, even though we budgeted for it as a revenue, it actually was a transfer. It was a loan receivable, but the money did come in. If we look at general fund expenditures, and again, the CAFR shows that expenditures were less than budget by about $1.7 million, but again, after you consider encumbrances and carry forwards, the savings is about $165,000 is what we reported, but we found about $20,000 more during the audit. So we're actually coming up with a savings of about $185,000. And just a breaking news that we want to bring to your attention is there was another item, when we get into the CAFR a little bit more, there was about, one of the items that was overextended was police services, and one of the things that was negotiated was a retro amount of about 6%, and we advised council that that amount would be picked up from the Measure R. as part of the agreement. When we did the retro calculation, that amount was actually charged to the general fund. So there is about $50,000 that we will be correcting this year that would affect this fund balance. So when everything is said and done, we thought that there would be savings in the general fund, better fund balance by about $350,000. It's actually going to be $50,000 more than that, so about $400,000 better off at the end of fiscal year 15. So that's definitely good news.
Yeah.
There were two savings if you look at these. So if you look at the public safety on the far, close to the far right, the budget was 6.9, and we were just over that. Again, that's primarily the result of the retro amount that was charged to the general fund. It should have been charged to Measure R, and we will be correcting it. We will not be issuing the financials. We will be correcting in the current year as a prior period adjustment, but we did want to bring that to your attention. So overall general fund, after you take everything into account, we had previously advised you that we thought, or that general fund would be better off by $350,000, so we're looking at closer to $400,000 for fiscal year ending 15. That was definitely good news. If we move on to the Culture and Recreation Fund, this is just, I want to go briefly where the Culture and Recreation, we budgeted about $3.7 million on revenues, and we came in at just about 3.6, and primarily the difference was, the shortfall was the housing grant that we did not receive because the project had not been completed. On the expenditure side, we had a budget of 3.6. Total expenditures were 3.2, but again, after encumbrances and contracts, and we actually show those and reserve those amounts, we will end up with a savings just about $90,000. So overall, better off in the Culture and Recreation Fund as well, so nothing changed significantly from the pre-audit report. If we go to the other funds, and one of the things I'm going to just show you in the CAFR on page 30, what we do is we have to decide which funds, based on a mathematical calculation, based on assets, liabilities, and revenues and expenditures, which funds you present as a standalone or which ones are combined in a total group. And if you were to look at page 30 of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, it basically shows you all of the governmental funds, and what Greg did mention, we have governmental funds and we have the business type funds, and so these are just for the governmental funds. But one of the items that council have requested is for us to present a little bit more on some visuals, so we kind of put this together, and we're going to be expanding on this when we do the quarterly updates and future CAFRs, but we wanted to at least get started right now because this was a request by council, so we're definitely going to be sharpening some of these presentations, but we did at least want to get started. So for all of the governmental funds, you can see that we already talked about the general fund. Most of the revenues are coming from taxes. Culture and Recreation, most of the revenue is coming from charges for services, which we know that. On the successor housing, that's basically interest. The citywide capital acquisition and recovery charges for services basically are impact fees. And other governmental funds, the majority, the blue shaded area, most of that's coming from lighting and landscape districts, their taxes, and from the Measure R. But that big purplish area, it looks like right there, is primarily coming from intergovernmental, and that's coming from grants from our TDA, FTA, and so forth. So that just kind of gives you a snapshot of where the revenue sources are coming from all of the governmental funds. If we take a look at the governmental fund expenditure side, general fund, we've kind of talked about the bluish area is general government. The next area, the 47%, is public safety. Culture and Recreation, obviously it's culture and recreation related. And on the far right, other governmental funds, that 25% is primarily expenditures for the public safety, CSD, and Measure R. So that is public safety. And then the next item that looks kind of purplish up on the screen is primarily our gas tax, so streets and roads. And that's really from our gas tax fund, TDA. And then on the very top, the 34%, that's coming from our Northeast Area Capital Acquisition Fund, and most of that is under for capital acquisition, capital projects, and that one is actually the water treatment facility right there. So if we move away from governmental funds, we now talk about enterprise funds, and just a quick snapshot on some of the revenue sources. On the far left, you have our water enterprise fund. We had charges for services were just about $3.7 million actual, and this actually is on page 35 if you are following along in the CAFR. All of the revenue sources, sewer, water, and solid waste were all above budgeted amounts. The water fund was less than budget primarily because we offered the meters to be collected over 3-year periods. So we did come in just short of water budgeted revenues. So that kind of shows you at a glance what our revenues look like for the enterprise fund. If we were to look at the expenditures, all of the enterprises were within budgeted amounts. And one of the items that you will see in the CAFR is it's a new expense account that is presented, and it's related to pension. And Greg is actually the expert in finance department on accounting and financial reporting for our pensions. So you will see that in the financials for enterprise fund. So that is new to our financials in the current fiscal year. And that gives you just a breakdown between personnel services is on the bottom, and it moves up to utilities, supplies and materials, and then you have depreciation and amortization. The next slide is just a recap. It's page 62 of the CAFR. I'm trying to eventually move along towards the end of it. And that just gives you a snapshot of our fund balance. It tells you a little bit on the 1% at the very top is non-spendable, and that's usually like an inventory or something that we've prepaid. The next section is committed, and that's basically our reserve policy. There are some capital items in there as well, but primarily it's our reserve policy. The next section that's kind of brown is assigned, and that's basically discretion that the city council has given the city manager. And what that number represents for the most part is the initial funding for an internal service fund. We are developing that policy right now, and we will be coming back to council with a formal policy to try to recover and have funds available for the replacement of capital assets. And then the bottom portion of that is really the unassigned, that's really what we look at and what's available for expenditure. Next section, and now this is the third component of the CAFR. We're getting into the statistical section, which is the final section of the CAFR. And I just wanted to bring 2 slides to your attention. The very first one is on governmental funds, and it gives you the statistical section gives you a 10-year history where the information is available. So here you can see all of the governmental fund revenues. It's not just the general fund, it's all of the governmental funds. And you can see a big spike up there of, $30 million, and that's really from revenues that we received for funding of the Central Galt interchange. We had about a $4 million increase for Measure A, and then about a $2 million increase for RSTP. So that accounts for about $6 million from the 24 up to the 30 million. We come back down from 30 million down to 20 million, and that was mostly a reduction in non-recurring items for intergovernmental revenues, because we didn't have the grants that were coming back over Measure A. And we also saw for the first time that the redevelopment agency was no longer part of the city account, so our taxes did go down as well. Redevelopment taxes, not city taxes. We're kind of holding steady at about 20 million, and we can see an uptick in this current fiscal year ending, and primarily those are for taxes, an increase in property taxes and sales tax. And I think the last slide is talking about governmental fund expenditures as a whole. Again, you see this big uptick like of $37 million. Again, that's primarily related to about a $9 million increase in capital. The primary amount was the increase in Central Galt interchange. Excuse me, it was about $5 million up there, from 31 million to 36. You see a decrease of about 9 million from 36 down to 26 million because Central Galt interchange was not reoccurring in that amount. It only made up about 6 million. We're kind of holding steady, 26 million to 26 million. We did have Twin Cities in there, that 26,814,000 though. And in the current fiscal year, we saw that capital expenditures did go down to the current level of 24 million. It's a primary decrease. The second report that we're asking for council to present this evening is the report on internal controls, and that's this report here. And there's actually 3 areas that the auditors will comment on. One of them is a material weakness, which basically they believe that operations, you can't really rely on anything because something is so deficient, and that would be like balancing cash. There were no material weaknesses noticed. The second level would be a significant deficiency. There were no significant deficiencies noted in the current fiscal year. And other matters is the third category, and those are basically recommendations that they feel that could strengthen internal controls. And one was noted, basically that non-current personnel do have access to the city's accounting software, or they don't necessarily have access, but we don't actually remove them through the system. So they believe that's a weakness in our system, and we agreed with that. So we will be working with our software provider on running a report to see who the users are and what levels of security or access that they have. And we'll also be working with exit procedures when an employee is separated from service on access to our system. So we already have, even though this is on television, we already have started this process. So we believe that our system is secure, but I did want to bring to your attention, this was a comment that was noted as of June 30th. And finally, the last report is the independent auditor's report on Proposition 111, and this is just a couple of page document. And the city is required to actually compute the appropriations limit, and the auditors did recognize that mathematically our calculation was correct. However, when you take a negative and a negative, it turns into a positive number, and that's what we did. The auditors believe that that probably wasn't in the spirit of new construction additions, so they believe that the more appropriate amount should have been shown. We should have elected a different choice, and we agree with them. So we will be coming back when we actually do the appropriations limit for the next fiscal year. Mathematically, they did say it's correct, and we do believe that mathematically it was correct, but we did acquiesce on that one, feeling that the spirit of the limit was not to increase it by that amount. So we will be coming back to council with that change. The single audit report is not completed as of yet, so we expect that that will be presented to council before the March deadline, so we will be coming back at that at a later date. There are no costs associated with acceptance of the staff recommendations. They will be incorporated in the 2015-16 budget document, so we know where beginning balances should have been based on actuals for fiscal year ending 15. And this evening, I am joined by Greg Lucido, Deputy Finance Director, who was lead on the audit this year for the first time with the City of Galt, so thank you. We also have Michelle Neely, Accounting Manager, Matt Boring, Senior Administrative Analyst, and we have Catherine Yuen, Partner with Mason Associates. And so if you have any questions of me or any of the team, we'd be more than glad to try to address it this evening.
Very good. Council, questions?
No, good job, thank you.
That's outstanding. Okay, it shows that we need to accept this, and I assume we need a motion to that effect.
So moved.
With a motion by Councilmember Campion, second by Vice Mayor Payne. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Inez.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. But we are actually making a concerted effort to incorporate those. Thank you.
Moving on to the Police Department. Chief Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The item before you tonight is a proposed side letter with the to the Galt Police Officer Association MOU. As you know, in February of 2015, the city entered into a 3-year MOU with the GPOA that expires December 31st, 2017. For the first time, the MOU contained a provision under special assignments establishing a corporal assignment, which was an important step forward, I think, in the evolution of the department. And the primary purpose of the corporal was to use them as a field training officer. Tonight you saw Corporal Azevedo was standing in the back working with Officer Hill. And so we think that's going to be a significant upgrade to the program. But there are other duties that are allowed under the MOU, which is the corporals may also act as OICs, or officers in charge, in the absence or unavailability of a supervisor. So that is a provision in the MOU. During the course of implementation, the GPOA, on behalf of, and several of its members, filed a grievance regarding the use of those corporals. Specifically, the concern was that they were supplanting or taking away overtime from sergeants, that the department was, in other words, intentionally using the corporals as OICs rather than having sergeants work overtime. course, that wasn't our intent, nor was it the intent of the provision in the agreement. But we met, and with the help of the city manager and the city attorney's office, and worked out an agreement which you see before you tonight, which we feel certainly preserves our prerogative in the department to run the department in the most effective and cost-efficient way, and also, though, addresses the concerns of the GPOA regarding the sergeants and their use of the overtime. I won't read the specific detail to you, but this is the process that we have been using since day one. And as we went through and piece by piece talked it through and talked about how implementation and what it looks like, I think the concerns on both sides were addressed in this. And so what we're recommending to you tonight is that you adopt the resolution approving the side letter agreement to the memorandum of understanding between the City of Galt and the Galt Police Officers Association, and authorize the interim city manager to enter into and execute that side letter on behalf of the city. It will have no direct fiscal impact above already budgeted amounts for the approved overtime that's already been budgeted, so there will be no necessary for an additional appropriation of funds.
Very good. Any questions from council on this?
Yeah, I did. I didn't notice this earlier. Maybe you can just explain it to me. It says that the OIC or corporal, they can fill an on-duty during the supervising patrol sergeant's absence. The corporal may fill the need for up to 1/2 of the shift they are working. Now, is the shift a day or the work week? Because then it goes on to talk about the
It's a
work week.
particular work day. So on a 12-hour shift, it would be 6 hours.
Okay.
On a 10-hour, it'd be 5 hours.
Okay. It was a little confusing because then it talks about the work week with no correlation.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, looking for a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Campion. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Hewer. Any further discussion? Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye, unanimous vote. All right, and we're going to be moving on to item G3.
So, yeah, Mr. Mayor, we're going to go back to G1 on the, under the City Council agenda, and if I could ask you to also jointly convene the Galt Successor Agency, I can then give one staff report under item G1 and also under the Successor Agency item 4A.
So if I understand correctly, we do not have to adjourn the council meeting?
No, actually, leave the council in session, and we'll be jointly in session as the council and the Successor Agency.
Then we will convene to the Galt Successor Agency. Call roll, please.
Board Member Payne? Here. Board Member Hewer? Here. Board Member Campion?
Here.
Board Member Powers? Here. Board Member Cruz?
Present. Okay, moving on.
All right, great, thank you. So as we've talked about in previous meetings, early this fall, the state legislature adopted a new law, SB 107, that made several changes to the redevelopment dissolution process. And one of the most significant changes that it made for our purposes is it set a deadline for any agency to obtain a finding of completion by the end of this year, December 31st. And obtaining this document, the finding of completion, is one of the necessary steps that will enable the successor agency to access some of the bond money that we have on deposit, and also ultimately to recover some of the loan money that the city has made to the successor agency or former redevelopment agency over the years. So from our purposes, there's about $9 million at stake by getting this finding of completion. The item that has held us up from getting the finding of completion for probably about 2 years now is we've had a dispute with the Department of Finance over a $1 million item. And basically, the essence of that dispute is that the city made a short-term loan to the former redevelopment agency at a time when the redevelopment agency did not have sufficient funds to pay some of its debt. Debt service on our bonds, pass-through payments to other taxing entities. So it was a short-term loan to the redevelopment agency. When the money came into the redevelopment agency paid back the city. That payback is what the Department of Finance has disputed. They claim that the city getting its money back was unlawful under the current law. So that's been the dispute. One of the items that's built into this new law, SB 107, actually acknowledges that that payment that we've had a dispute over for 2 years actually is now okay. But instead of just saying we're all even and everybody go about your business and here is your finding of completion, the process that the state wants us to go through, in fact requires us to go through, is we now have to pay them $1 million, and then we can claim the $1 million on our future ROPs, and we can recover the $1 million over about a 3 to 5 year period, depending upon how much excess tax revenue is available to the redevelopment agency. There's a mechanism in the law, this new law, that would have allowed the Department of Finance to enter into an installment payment plan with us. So what we said to we've been in discussions with the Department of Finance since September, right after this law came out. And what we suggested to them is, okay, now that you've now acknowledged that we actually can get the $1 million back, how about if we enter into a payment program that as the money comes into us through our ROPs, we'll give you back a portion of the $1 million. So instead of the city having to come out of pocket another $1 million, as the money comes into the successor agency, we'll pay the Department of Finance, actually the county auditor, and everybody will be good. They came back to us and said, no, we actually think the city can afford to make the payment. We've looked at your reserves, and you have enough money to make the payment, so we'd really rather you make the payment. We tried to explain to them on several occasions that we actually did not have excess money in our reserves. We really would like to keep that money in case we had an emergency. We went back and forth a few times, and our last offer to them was, we said, what about if we just have a 3-year payment program, so that we guarantee that even if we don't receive the money, we'll pay you off within 3 years, to try to just not have to make $1 million payment right now. We got an email back from the Department of Finance right before we broke for Thanksgiving last Wednesday that said, we've concluded that you're not eligible for the payment program. So that puts us in a situation where we need to make the $1 million payment in order to get our finding of completion and then be ultimately eligible for the $9 million that I explained earlier this evening. And it is our hope that we'll recover that $1 million in about a 3 to 5 year period. That's the estimate that we have as of today. So there's 2 resolutions before you. One is a resolution of the Successor Agency Board, in part acknowledging that this is in fact a debt of the successor agency. We will be able to claim it on the ROPs in future time in order to repay the general fund. There's a resolution of the City Council which authorizes the payment of the $1 million, which will come out of general fund reserves. In the resolution in your packet, I had indicated that if we were unable to enter into an agreement by December 15th, that we would be able to make that payment. Since essentially we've exhausted all ability to negotiate with the Department of Finance, in the City Council resolution, I'd like to change December 15th to December 5th so that we can move forward with that payment next week, and then pursue getting our finding completion as soon as possible. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and then there are two resolutions you'd have to act independently, first as the successor agency board and then as the city council.
Very good. Questions from council?
I have a question. Steve, are there other cities that have been treated or accommodated the same way?
Yeah, I can answer that question. I represent a number of successor agencies, and I also am in contact with other attorneys who represent successor agencies, and the common complaint that we're hearing is that the Department of Finance has not been very accommodating in terms of approving installment payment agreements.
So it's not exclusive?
No, it's not just Galt, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I suppose. You're not being singled out.
But I think the thing that is very frustrating to me is that we had a dispute with them over this $1 million for 2 years. This new law essentially acknowledges that it was in fact a lawful payment. And so then instead of accommodating us, which they are now allowed to do under the law, notwithstanding the fact that we've waited 2 years to get our findings completion, they have refused to be cooperative with the city or the successor agency. And it's just, from my perspective, it is extremely disappointing.
Any further questions from council?
I have the million out of our general fund, out of our reserves. Any concerns?
Yes, we have some concerns, and we actually expressed them with Department of Finance. We basically told them that we had a reserve intact based on the policy. We also said that we had $1 million in our reserve, but that was the initial amount to fund the equipment replacement, which we already knew was underfunded by over $20 million. Once we make this $1 million payment, it leaves us just at about an 8% operating reserve, which is basically 1 month of general fund operations. So we did convey that to them, and they came back and said, what Steve mentioned, nope, pay it up. So we did convey that to them. We went back in and talked to them about, yes, things have changed since the last year's CAFR. These are the amounts that are in fund balance now, and these are the purposes for those amounts in there. And you're basically, if we make this one payment, that you leave us with 1 month of general fund operations, general fund and coastal recreation. And the email came back that said, yes.
Oh, geez.
So yes, we did convey concerns to them.
I want to also mention that I was also in contact with our Assemblyman's office, convey to them the situation that we are in, pass to them the correspondence back and forth between the city and the Department of Finance, and we have not had any relief from that avenue as well. But we feel like we tried. We're kind of running out of time at this point. We feel like we've exhausted all avenues that are available to us, and we've got about $9 million on the line.
And if we don't pay it, then we will be fined, or what?
So what the law provides is, the term is, it's kind of called a poison pill, and basically it says that if you don't get your findings completion by December 31st, you can never get it.
Wow.
And that's where
So we think by paying the $1 million, we have time to still get it. We will get it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, don't you also lose out on the additional bond funds?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, if you never get it, if you don't get your finding completion, you cannot ever. There's no way to ever access the bond funds. And
Which
there's
is
no,
another, what, 7 or 9 million?
So I think we can only access 35% of our bond funds. So it's somewhere in about the $4 million range, I believe.
We have about 6.6 of bond funds available, but based on the limitations, so that was reduced now.
Okay. And then the other thing is, if you don't get the finding of completion, then there's a process that you have to go through, but ultimately we'll be able to recover over years some of the loans that were made by the city to the successor agency over the past 10, 20 years. And if we don't get that finding of completion, then that opportunity is also closed to us.
It's frustrating. I mean, it's almost, and you wonder why companies leave the state of California.
Yeah.
And this is the way we treat local government, and local government that has to trickle down all the bad news to private industry.
It's very frustrating.
It's
Just
sad.
what Steve mentioned earlier was just because the language in the law actually does address
Law
us
for it.
that, right, and they're just, what I perceive just their unwillingness to work with us is very
Well,
frustrating.
it's not even work with you. Do what the law allows you to do.
Right, just.
There's no work
Exactly.
involved.
Right, so you do not have to require, the amount to be paid to you, so just read the law and work with us. Well, interpret it differently, I guess.
Quick question for you. What guarantee do we have that this second finding of completion will actually be upheld? If they've already taken one away from us, you're gonna take $1 million plus?
Well, the law provides that if the payment is made, they have to issue the finding of completion. So, I don't think this one would be taken away.
I understand that, but prior to that, we had an agreement with them.
Right, but yes, I understand. Well aware.
Thanks to our Attorney General's office, that kind of got washed out. Well, I have to agree it's an illegal act, but you know what? Right now, the criminally insane are running the asylum over there.
Yeah, does appear so.
Okay, any further questions from council? I'm sorry, should I be doing this council or board at this point? Council first, then board?
Yes, you can do either order is fine.
Since council's first, I'll run that one. Motion from council?
A motion as amended by the city manager with regard to the date.
Very good, Councilmember Campion motioned. Second?
Second.
Okay. You guys want to flip a coin over here? Second by Vice Mayor Payne. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
Aye. So it'll pass 5-0. Moving on to the redevelopment dissolution compliance deadlines for the successor agency. Call for the vote, please.
A motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion.
Motion is amended by the successor manager.
Board Member Campion made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Powers for the second. Call for the vote, please.
Board Member Payne? Aye. Board Member Hewer?
Aye.
Board Member Campion?
Aye.
Board Member Powers? Aye. Board Member Cruz?
Aye. Passes 5-0. We will adjourn from the Galt successor agency and reconvene to the Galt City Council.
Actually,
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay. Actually, if you stay in session as the Galt Successor Agency, there was a couple of other
Consent.
items on the agenda.
Yes, my apologies. So we'll remain in the successor agency, and we will go straight to the consent calendar. Do I have any questions or, okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Board Member Payne. Do I have a second? Second by Board Member Hewer. Call for the vote.
Board Member Payne? Aye. Board Member Hewer?
Aye.
Board Member Campion?
Aye.
Board Member Powers? Aye. Board Member Cruz?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Now we can adjourn. And back to the Galt City Council. City Clerk's report.
I don't have anything tonight.
Nothing. Comments by staff? Nothing? Nothing?
Just a real quick reminder, it's not on the calendar here, but we will be having a special planning commission meeting on December 17th. Well, I have nothing. Okay.
Glenn? Greg? Nothing? Armando?
Will you guys be discussing the lining of the night? Either one of you? No? Okay.
One of us will, but you can take it.
So, lining of the night event will be this Saturday. City Tots will start their performance at 4:30. Santa Claus will be here taking pictures in the council chambers from 4:30 to 7:30, and the parade will start promptly at 6:30. So you are all invited. We are going to be lighting a new tree this year. We'll be the one right south of us, south of the original trees. So hope you're able to join us that night.
Thank you, sir.
Armando, do you want to kind of go over the program for the night, the choirs and?
Sure. It'll be City Tots at 4:30, then followed by the elementary school choir, the elementary school band, and then excuse me, I'm thinking I have this right, the Latter-day Saints Chime Choir.
Okay, thank you.
Here at the Littleton Center.
Yes, that's a little consistent.
Very good. Chief Drummond?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Rudolph?
Nothing, sir.
Ms. Yang?
Nothing for it.
Okay, we'll move on to council. Councilmember Campion?
Nothing.
Councilmember Powers?
I have a few things to say. South County Services Senior Luncheon is December 10th from 11:30 to 2 o'clock at Chicola Center. Senior citizens are welcome to come and have a free party, so to speak. Just call 745-9174 to register. Also, Rayleigh's has food for families every year around this time until the first of the year, and people that go to the store can buy for $10 can donate a $27 bag of food for a needy family in town, and we would hope at this holiday time that you guys would remember that are some people and a lot of children who are not having 3 meals a day, and if you could remember to take out your wallets and give $10 to Rayleigh's, we'd really appreciate that. And last but not least, all over town, the fire department and the police department and various other organizations are always giving away, trying to help Santa with toys. So if you're somewhere and you're buying stuff for your kids, if you could buy an extra toy and either bring it to South County Services or to any of there's all kinds of vendors in town and establishments, and you could make a difference for a child at Christmas time. And that's it.
Do you bring them wrapped or unwrapped?
Unwrapped. So unwrapped works good because then you can tell who they're for. And, yeah, unwrapped is best.
I wish I could make it to your lunch. We'll make it this year.
I'm sorry you're not going to be there.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Hewitt?
Oh, nothing at this time.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Nothing.
All right. I have one thing, actually 2 things, I'm sorry, my mistake. First thing I'll start off with is, as you're leaving the building tonight after we adjourn, look at the outside of the building. We had several very hardworking elves for the city do a beautiful job on the front of it.
Looks fabulous.
It looks wonderful. And the other one is, Glenn, how are we doing out at the range?
Blocks are scheduled to be delivered later this week, and weather permitting, we are hoping to be finished next week.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you very much. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting.